Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmer, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide Service and jbiztechvalley.com. Mark, who do we have with us today?
Well, we have an elected official with us today
All right.
who has also been a friend of mine since the late 70s, early 80s. His name's Gary Hughes. Gary worked at WROW Radio when they did news way back in the day.
Now they're into music.
And now he's majority leader of the Schenectady County Legislature, and he's the vice president of communications at the Business Council of New York State, the largest lobbying group for businesses in New York State. So welcome to the Jewish View, Gary.
Nice to be here, Mark.
It's so good to see
seeing
you
again, too.
And we haven't aged a day.
No, we look much the same as we did
That's right.
in 1980. We certainly do.
So how do you tie in, as chairman of the Schenectady County Legislature?
Majority leader.
Majority leader. You
Which-
also chair the Committee on Economic Development and Planning.
That's correct.
So being with the Business Council and then Economic Development with the County Legislature, that's, you're sort of this business head, I guess, all the time. They're always...
Well, it's a space that I've occupied for a good part of my career, actually. I've always been in the private sector a number of years. I was director of communications at MVP Healthcare. So the kind of the crossroads of business and the economy with politics and community services, just sort of an intersection that I've been in for quite a while.
And you have your own business, which is doing voiceovers.
I do a bit of that from time to time. Once you're, they always say that once you've been in radio, you're in recovery from it every day.
That's
So
right.
I continue to recover.
Who would be voice?
from that.
Well, he might do political commercials. He might be the voice you hear on political
I've done an
commercials.
occasional one of those. I've done some work with not-for-profits. It's
Just
sort of a creative
It's
release.
interesting, though, that, see many politicians, they're coming from the communications, and we say, even just saying President Ronald Reagan was a movie star, someone who can, communicate with people.
I don't think a Democrat from Schenectady is someone who wants to be compared with a Republican from
Well,
Though he had quite a history
as a Democrat.
in the city of Schenectady.
Who? Ronald Reagan?
Absolutely.
Oh, please tell
through
us.
His,
Yeah, I never heard
through
that.
all his initial transition from acting into public affairs came when he went to work for the General Electric Company, and for a number of years was their spokesperson. And
he worked in Schenectady?
No, but he would attend, at that point, the corporate headquarters, corporate flag was in Schenectady,
Right.
and he would attend the shareholders' meetings and give speeches around the country. And that really was sort of where the germ of the seed of his political career
Wow.
was planted there.
he
So-
was in radio, wasn't he, even before he was an actor?
Sportscaster.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
so I'm saying, well, I guess communication's important for a politician. You have to communicate.
I think so, and I got into broadcasting via an interest in the news, and majored in political science and actually speech and theater, because they didn't have communications degrees, as you know, Mark, back in the day. And so that interest was always there, and the interest in holding local public office was always there.
Really?
And it just eventually came to pass that it was time to not be in broadcasting anymore. I was getting a little tired of, at the time I used to refer to it as sort of being a bystander at the banquet of life. You can watch it, but you can't really participate in it because you need to keep that objectivity. And so when the opportunity came along to kind of root ourselves here in the Capital District a little bit, I made the little sidestep into public relations, public affairs, and that led to political work for candidates I liked, and that led to the occasional phone call, have you ever thought about
Running?
And I would say absolutely not. And then eventually, would you ever consider running for county legislature? And I said, well, let me think about that one.
So do you have problems with fundraising, or you just put your own money into your campaigns? Because you run like as a block of, like in your district in Schenectady, there's like 3 or 4 people in that run that district-wide?
The way Schenectady County is apportioned at the county level, we have what are called multi-member districts. There are
Right.
4 of them. And the way that we maintain one man, one vote is primarily by the numbers of members in the district, and then there's also a small amount of weighting that goes on. I have a vote that is slightly heavier than 1. It's like 1.072 or something like that. The question about fundraising, I think at the local level, in those sorts of races, I put in some money myself. People that I know contribute to campaigns.
So do you have a Friends of Gary Hughes
I
account?
do,
or something?
I do.
So how much does it cost you to run a race for county legislature? Approximately. I'm not going to hold you to an exact number, but is it in the thousands?
It is. It
4,000
is.
or 5,000 or
Somewhere between 5 and 10, probably.
5 and 10 to
Somewhere
run
in
a
that
good
range.
race with lawn signs and
Yeah,
all that?
a good aggressive campaign is somewhere.
What
in
is
that.
really the, maybe we can say the climate, to give us the overall idea of what's happening in Schenectady County? Is it going up? Things are better? Again, Mark Lake says we have a lot of politicians and a lot of people. We had, the head of Proctor's here, so when he said that was boosting the downtown revitalization program. But just in general, how is things,
Well,
going?
it
Things are
tracks,
growing.
Schenectady tracks, I think, my interest in politics. It had gotten about as bad as a community could get in terms of lack of local leadership, lack of direction. You're looking at 2002, 2003 now. The city had a $10 million deficit, which for a city the size of Schenectady is pretty
Who
substantial.
was mayor then?
The person who wasn't mayor when I got, it's
it-
actually a very good friend of mine, and I don't lay it at his feet, but it was
Frank Deuce?
Al Jazinski.
Al Jazinski, okay. So it
And
was
the
after
situation
Frank
was
Deuce.
not all of Al's making,
Right,
but
right.
there just was poor
No, he
leadership
seemed
all the way
to
around.
try to turn it around in terms of bringing the Guyanese,
Yep.
going to Guyana and bringing them in and having a whole new population, ethnic group coming into the city, so.
And I don't want to make this a partisan thing.
No,
'cause
exactly.
it's,
No, we're not even talking
but,
about that, not at all.
I finally said to myself, I could do this as well as some of these people that are, and possibly better.
So when,
And that triggered my interest, and then,
Yeah.
as I say, when I got that particular call, I said, okay, let's talk. And we were successful. Democrats were successful at the county level, successful at the city level that year. And to me, that made a tremendous amount of difference, because for the first time in probably 20, 25 years, you could have a unified agenda. The city and the county were pretty much on the same page in terms of trying to, we were doing shared services before the state was telling us, boy, you really need to do shared services. We were, working there was a great deal of economic development at cross purposes in Schenectady at that time. We were able to unify that. We were able to bring in Ray Gillen, a really talented, really one of the top economic developers in the nation, honestly.
to head up
Recruited him
Metroplex.
from the state.
To head up Metroplex, right?
To both be Commissioner of Economic Development and Planning, and to also be the chairman of Metroplex.
Yeah, right, head of Metroplex.
And while we're on the subject, take absolutely no credit for the creation of Metroplex, which was very much a creature of Republicans and Democrats working
Yeah.
together. I think our contribution was to provide it the leadership it needed and to get it working.
Okay.
And that has made a tremendous amount of difference.
What's the budget for Schenectady County?
Our budget's about $305 million, was $297 last year, and the proposal that's before us now that we will vote on next week is $307.
So it's going down?
No,
You said
297 to 307.
No, you said 309. No, was it 309 down to 307 or?
It was 297 million last year.
Right,
It's
oh.
about 307
It's going to be a
million this
balanced
year.
budget
Okay.
for the most part?
It's balanced, and it's, there's an increase in the tax levy that's under the cap. It's 1.9%,
Just under,
something like that. Well, our
yeah.
cap is actually a little more than 2%, but
Okay.
you know how those work. I mean, it's 2% with some adjustment for inflation.
How much do the folks at Business Council consult with you, even though it's out of your job just description and job title, to ask you, you know, when they want to lobby or they want to make a point at the Capitol, that they ask you from a government standpoint, you know, if this is a wise move or if you could refine it or tweak it or?
Well, at the Business Council, we really listen to our members and what, you know,
And
what they want. I think the value that I bring to the Business Council is much more on the communication side of my
Right.
professional skill set.
But that's what I'm
Certainly the
saying.
government is there, the politics is
Right.
there, and you know, that's just part of the mix. But
But it's out of your job description. That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking you, how much of that do they really
they don't.
counsel you?
Not
No,
much.
Not at all,
Not much.
really.
I'm there
Because you
to,
could be a real value in terms of your opinion, but you don't ask unless you're asked.
No, you know, it's.
I speak when I'm spoken to.
No, it's not. It's truly not as formal as that. It's just we have some extraordinarily skilled, knowledgeable
Yes. You
lobbyists
do.
at the Business Council.
I know them
and
all,
they know what they're doing.
Yes. No
I help
doubt.
a lot with shaping message and.
Okay.
And which is what I do. You know,
In both government and your paying job. How
Absolutely.
much do you get paid as majority leader?
The majority leader makes $500 a year more than our members, so that puts me at about $14,000.
Okay.
So it's
that's
if you
really-
figure
it's
the
very
cost of the
minimal.
campaign, and then you look at the salary, no one does this for the money.
No, well,
know,
that's why it's not a
People do
full-time.
this
It's
because.
not
Do you
a
think
full-time
that's
job,
fair? I mean, we have many, again, so many elected officials, and some get a decent wage, we would say. I mean, no one's getting rich, but a decent wage, but this is less than minimum wage, what you're talking about.
It's public service.
Oh, it's public service.
That's a decision that gets made at the local level by the voters. I'm not lobbying for a salary increase for members of the legislature. I'll give you another example. I think for a long period of time, the mayor of Schenectady, which is a full-time position, I think the salary was pretty skimpy at, I don't know, 55,000 or whatever it is, and it was when Brian Stratton was mayor that the consensus developed on the city council. They actually increased the mayor's salary to somewhere in the neighborhood of 90, I think, which
Quite a big
for
job.
a
yeah.
chief executive of a
Big city.
corporation that's running about a $75 million budget, that's probably, you know,
Now,
not
just-
not the
it's-
compensation you'd see on the private sector side, but certainly
Right.
certainly more adequate.
But sometimes you have the other side of the coin and accepted that you're a good man and you're altruistic and you're doing it obviously not to get rich, to say the very least. But on the other hand, sometimes they always say, well, there's not enough people running for office. So if maybe there would be a decent salary, you'd get more of a mix. I mean,
I'll
there's the
tell you
other
who
side
I
of the
would.
coin.
I'll tell you who, Rabbi. I'll tell you who I'd provide a salary to if I was the king of the world.
okay.
I would insist that school board members be paid.
Yes.
I think that is the most thankless service that there is. I was one for 3 years. You put in many, many more hours. And because there is no stipend attached to it, it can either A, be very difficult to find people, or B, be very difficult to find people who can collaborate and work together. So, I mean, when you look at the amount of tax dollars in New York State that go into public education, it seems to me if you were going to take your argument that you should pay your elected representatives more in sync with the responsibility, that's where you'd put the money.
And the Schenectady government doesn't have a county executive like Albany County has. You have a county manager,
We have a
administrator.
we have a county administrator form of government. The
Right,
administrator
and-
is
Kathleen,
Rooney.
yes.
Yep.
So How much, now she's hired by the county legislature,
Correct.
so how much of a positive working relationship is there, or does she feel comfortable bucking up against the county legislature, even though you're paying, you've hired her, you could fire her?
I think there's some give and take there, which I think is healthy. And I think that there's, it's the legislature's role to set policy, and it's the manager's role to implement it. And most of the time, that's what happens. And occasionally, there'll be a little back and forth in terms of resources, and
But she's not fearing for her job every time she comes up against the.
No.
How many? There's only like 2 Republicans on the county
we
legislature,
have 2 Republican members.
and there are more conservatives, like 3 conservative
Correct.
members, and 2 Republicans. This is weird because you would think, especially when you see Schenectady County was really dominated at one point by Republicans. You've really turned that whole ship around politically.
Some of that, I think, is the same thing that you see in other parts of the state. The state is
not in Albany
growing
County.
a little bluer. Albany obviously has a long Democratic tradition.
Yes.
Schenectady for many, many years had a very strong and robust Republican structure. And if you talk to different folks, they'll give you different interpretations of what happened. But I think that there is if you look around,
So if
I think there's, how do I want to put this? I think there's a sort of a life cycle to any organization. And
Okay.
I think you have to do certain things in the course of that life cycle to ensure that you're perpetuating it. And I think sometimes it happens that those things don't happen, and infighting
Right.
develops, and people can't resolve their
Right,
issues.
right.
And before you know it, you're more concerned with what's the small p politics that are happening in your organization than you are the large p politics
Right.
that is all about leadership. And when those kinds of things happen, you lose momentum. And I think
Okay, so I got
that's my personal
So I
take
have
on
to
what
ask you
happened
this
there.
question: why is if you have 3 conservatives and 2 Republicans, why isn't one of the conservatives the minority leader? Why is it a Republican as minority leader if you have more conservatives than Republicans?
Prerogative of the majority to determine who the.
Well, that's why I'm asking you. You're the majority leader.
Well, it would be first. It would be a collective decision of the group, and secondly, there is a sort of a collaborative relationship. Several of those conservatives were cross-endorsed by the Democrats.
Yes.
So,
Even more reason why you
Yeah.
should reward them with
So-
being a minority leader.
but
That would be interesting. I mean, because I would never have heard that
That's,
a minor party line would be a minority
Well,
leader.
there's a tradition there. I mean, it's.
Nothing is in law is ensconced in law that says a Republican has to be.
But I think it's Schenectady. It's like many things. There are third parties, fourth parties, fifth parties, minor parties involved and active in campaigns. But each county has 2 election commissioners, and invariably one of those commissioners is Democrat, and one of them is a Republican. And I think there's just some things that are kind of formed traditionally like that. So
Well, I'm
that's
glad
my
I
answer to
asked
that
you
one.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe
That's
it's
my
something
answer
you'll
to that
think
one.
about and
But,
maybe want to look at. What about the county jail? Is
Yep.
that a problem for Schenectady County in terms of the cost for the inmates and?
One of the challenges that I think all counties have is meeting staffing requirements that come from the state. We're compliant at the moment. There's a good working relationship between the legislature and the Sheriff D'Agostino. We're sensitive to his particular needs because as an elected official himself, he has a responsibility to the people who elected him.
How much does it cost the county to subsidize the county jail? Because I presume it's losing money, it's a loss leader.
I'm going to back up and take a little different approach to that question,
Okay.
if I can, for a second, because There are a number of services that counties are required to provide. There are some other services that counties choose to provide. None of those services really makes money, or
Okay.
very few of them, all right? Easily 2/3 of our budget is consumed in state mandates. And they're for good things.
Okay.
They're for public assistance, they're for health care for the indigent.
Medicaid.
For things that, Medicaid, things that they're not bad, they're just the way we pay
Right.
for them in New York is we place a fair amount of that cost on counties. Of the piece that's left over, that is discretionary funding, if you will, you certainly have to have a jail. We choose to have a countywide library system, which is, I think, a very wise thing to do because it was sort of the original intergovernmental cooperation initiative way back in the 1960s when
And you
it
have
was
a very
formed.
good director
We
there.
have good people. I think we use the resources well. We're about to break ground on a new inner city branch of the library.
Yes.
So I don't tend to look at losing money on the jail. Are we spending the appropriate amount of money there to meet the requirements, and are we, is it a well-run institution?
Well,
I think
it's-
those answers, I think.
It says
probably
here
yes.
that it costs the local taxpayers $23 million in 2013
Sounds about right.
to run the county jail.
Sounds about right.
Okay, and you're saying that's not a problem? I mean, do you have a budget deficit in Schenectady County budget, or are you run, like Albany County runs a deficit, do you run a deficit?
What typically happens in Schenectady is we will appropriate some fund balance each year. There's some fund balance appropriated in
Like a
the
rainy
budget.
day fund? you mean?
Yeah, I mean, we run a surplus of
do?
about 31 million dollars.
Oh,
Okay, is our fund balance. We typically appropriate some of that fund balance to mitigate against tax increases. But then over the course of the year, we usually don't expend anywhere near the amount of fund balance that we
Should it-
appropriate, and a lot of that has to do with good management, I think.
should it go back to the people?
I think it's good to have some money in a rainy day fund. On a $300 million budget, $30 million is not a whole lot. I think that it's good
Okay.
to.
It's a good cushion.
It's a cushion. Things can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Things can happen.
Snow removal. It might be
We
one.
had an instance with a large taxpayer in Schenectady County a few years ago who inadvertently and inappropriately paid sales tax on something they shouldn't have paid sales tax on, and when that happens, the state comes back and takes the money. Minus that surplus, we would have had a pretty serious problem for ourselves for a while. But it's for those kinds of contingencies. But no, the budget balances.
Okay,
The budget balances.
okay. So let me ask you about the community college, Schenectady County Community College. You have an interim president now. You're on the board of trustees.
I am, by virtue of, oops,
of your position.
I just bumped into your
No, but
microphone there, and I apologize.
Just on the
By
of your
virtue of
posi-
being a member of the legislature,
Okay.
trustees are a blend of gubernatorial appointments
Right.
and county appointments, and of the county appointments, the college bylaws stipulate that one member of the sponsoring organization, which in our case is Schenectady County,
Okay.
has to be a.
Fun and games over there? Is it good? Is everything-
I really enjoy it.
Yeah?
I said earlier that I kind of got into public service via a school board.
Right.
And I said it was a lot of work. I didn't say I didn't enjoy it.
I know.
And I find it very enjoyable. And I also see it as interconnected with the economic development and planning stuff.
Right.
Because community colleges are where workforce development takes place. They're the places that.
If I could ask you one thing because we're running out a little bit out of time, but is that maybe you could impress upon the culinary school at Schenectady County Community College, which is really like top notch, to have a kosher program, kosher food preparation program. because CIA, Culinary Institute, doesn't do it, and they have no desire to?
I'd be happy to carry that back.
You know,
I'm very
and
serious.
The previous president,
Uh-huh.
you know, I was talking to him, he thought it was a wonderful idea,
Yeah.
then he left.
Yeah.
So now we got this woman there, I forgot her name, but
Acting President Aslan.
yes.
I'd be happy to take that right to Dean WROW, Chef WROW, who runs
Okay.
that program. I think that's a fabulous idea.
Good, okay.
I will champion that for you.
Thank you, all right.
I don't
Mark's
know how
looking
much,
at-
I mean, I certainly understand the differences. I don't know how much of that becomes an educational issue, but I would champion
We have
that.
the talent here who can help
Yep,
put the program
I would champion
together.
that.
Okay. So now you opened up an Albany branch of Schenectady County
Yes, we
Community
did.
College. And how's that going? Is that,
It's going, the growth is slow,
Uh-huh.
but that's understandable in my mind. I think people need to learn that it's there. I think the success in that program will come from getting right into the grassroots of Albany and networking it that way. I think that's how it's going to grow.
well, I see the advertising for it.
Yeah, and advertising is good. I believe in advertising, but I think it's going to come more word of mouth. I think it's going to come out of the faith community. I think it's going to come from different places. As
So-
people learn that they have this
Right.
educational opportunity right in their midst, rather than the trip to Troy or the trip to Schenectady.
Right.
I think they'll find
It's right here in the Albany
It's here.
County office building.
It's right in the county office building,
Do you,
6th floor, I think.
and what is the types of courses that are taught?
We do pretty much entry level, sort of the kind of gut level 101s for several programs. We have, in addition to that, we do our certified nurse assistant CNA program, which is a great, another one of those ladder jobs into healthcare. And we have a nice relationship with CDTA, so that the courses that you need at the Schenectady campus, you get a swipe card as a student, and the Bus Plus has you in front of Schenectady County main campus or our Center City campus in 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So people are discovering that that's a great way to
You don't have to worry about
get
parking.
around. Then you don't have a parking problem. So we're optimistic that it's going to continue to make strides.
So how do you split, is there a split where Albany County gets some of the revenue from those students who attend in Albany County, or is there something?
No, but they also don't pay the chargeback, so that's...
Explain to the audience the chargeback.
Oh dear, we don't have enough
Well,
time to explain that.
we got
If
2
you
minutes.
have, if you, 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
If, in a county that does not have a community college, if residents attend a community college, that community college can charge the host
County.
a fee. Our fee at Schenectady is significantly lower than other schools, so there's a savings to Albany County in terms of the lower chargeback fee. So that's how it works.
And then they're saving that. They don't have to pay, Albany County doesn't have
They
to
don't
pay
have to pay
Schenectady
as
County
much
but
to
they
Albany
still-
County as they would, say, to,
Okay.
the chargeback at Hudson Valley is higher. It's
Yeah.
just the way it's calculated, just based on their budget and our budget.
And then I
so there's a
guess-
savings there to the county.
I guess some of the economic part of it for Albany County is that you got people in downtown after work hours that
Yeah.
who are also going to, buy things in the stores downtown if they are
Well,
open after 5.
You have county residents who are advancing themselves with an education.
Yes.
And there's a long-term payoff to that, and I mean that sincerely.
People don't sneer at a community college associate's degree anymore? No.
And so many of them have linkages into bachelor's programs. So much of what you learn in a community college maybe is more career focused.
And it could be transferred to a university center or college?
And Mark, the growth in employment in New York State over the next 20 years is going to be in what are known as middle skill jobs.
Okay.
You need more than high school. You don't need a 4-year degree. You need specific technical skills, perhaps. And that's really the sweet spot for community colleges.
Kind of like broadcasting when we started. Okay,
Kinda
then
like
we went
that,
full
I
circle.
suppose. Yeah, there we go.
All right, I think
All
we're-
right, very good. Gary,
Thank you.
thank you for being on the Jewish View. You're doing good work on Schenectady, and continue with what you're doing and doing with good health.
And
Thank you.
much
Thank you,
success to you,
Rabbi.
Gary. Much
And
success.
we'll get that program in the
Great.
culinary arts
Thank
school.
you.